Let all your efforts be directed to something. Let it keep that end in view. It's not activity that disturbs people, but false conceptions of things that drive them mad. This series is meant as a read-along series with the Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday, and the January 5th entry includes this quote from the author. Having an end in mind is no guarantee that you'll reach it. No Stoic would tolerate that assumption. But not having an end in mind is a guarantee you won't. I would kind of argue a little bit with the nomenclature here and say that not having an end in mind is a guarantee that you will reach it. You've heard the old cliche, whether you're sure you can or sure you can't, you're probably right. I think that like he does say that it's no guarantee that you'll reach the end of your goal, that you'll reach the end of your mission, that you'll reach the end of whatever it is you're trying to do. If you do have an end in mind, not having an end in mind almost guarantees that you will reach the end that you have in mind. The title on the entry for January 5th is Clarify Your Intentions. This is an interesting differentiation, in my opinion. This is an interesting differentiation from the more common Stoic creed, which is kind of represented in the Serenity Prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. The idea here, clarify your intentions, is kind of the opposite of the Stoic idea, that you have to understand what it is that is not really affecting what you're doing. You are at work. Does that last TikTok you saw really affect anything? Then why are you thinking about it? Does the fact that your football team lost, does that really affect anything? Not that you're doing, so you can't let it affect your mood and performance. Does the fact that some jerk cut you off in traffic on your way to work affect you at work? No. So it cannot affect your performance. You cannot allow it to affect your performance while you're at work. That's normally where you see the ideas of Stoicism leading people. This idea, clarify your intentions, is kind of maybe a hyper-focused version of that. Maybe it's something slightly different than that, but the idea of having an end in mind is having horse blinders on. Knowing that whatever it is you're doing, you have to take into account where it ends. You're here. This is the ending. If you don't take this part into account, this part where you're at will get nowhere fast. It also, he makes the point in the chapter to say that, or the entry to say that you can't allow these ideas that you have about the end, you can't let that really deter you if things change, circumstances change, things change all the time. Sometimes that means you have to roll with it. Sometimes you have to decide what is not worth abiding by. Probably, if you are here, you have seen the Arnold video online where he talks about the things that helped him get ahead. And one of the things he says is, you have to break the rules, not the law, but the rules. Sometimes what that means is deciding that the end that you have in mind is worth pursuing even when other things say that it is not. This is the power of visualization. That is different than the power of manifestation, though I think sometimes they can be confused. If you are talking about visualization, I want to share something with you. In Walter Isaacson's biography of Einstein, he talks a lot about Einstein and how he would use thought experiments, which is nothing more than visualization on steroids. Some of the greatest scientific achievements of the 1900s happened because a guy was able to visualize things to such an otherworldly degree. If you don't know about the Einstein Annus Mirabilis, his miracle year, 1905, he published several papers that changed the way science was done, that changed fundamental assumptions about the universe. Brownian motion was one of those papers. The E equals MC squared paper was one of those papers. And there were two others. I can't remember exactly which ones they were. Special relativity, is that E equals MC squared? Anyway, I'm not the science guy, but he did all of that, wrote all of those papers as a patent clerk. He did not have some big fancy lab. He sat down and said, well, golly, if there's a thing called space-time, as opposed to just gravity working through particles, then this kind of really makes sense because X, Y, Z. So what is a thought experiment? I stole this from Wikipedia. A hallmark of Albert Einstein's career was his use of visualized thought experiments, Gedankenexperiment, as a fundamental tool for understanding physical issues and for elucidating his concepts to others. Einstein's thought experiments took diverse forms. In his youth, he mentally chased beams of light. For special relativity, he employed moving trains and flashes of light, and flashes of light to explain the most penetrating insights. For general relativity, he considered a person falling off a roof, accelerating elevators, blind beetles crawling on curved surfaces, and the like. So if you don't know what those thought experiments mentioned are, they're really worth looking up because it just teaches you how high-powered Einstein's brain was, like the one falling off the elevator. If a guy was standing in an elevator and all of a sudden the rope snapped, he would just feel like he was weightless. He wouldn't know. He would just be falling at the same rate as the elevator, slowly sort of hovering around each other. But if it accelerates up real fast, he would feel as if he were gaining weight. So where was I? In his debates with Niels Bohr on the nature of reality, he proposed imaginary devices that attempted to show, at least in concept, how the Heisenberg uncertainty principle might be evaded. In a profound contribution to the literature on quantum mechanics, Einstein considered two particles briefly interacting and then flying apart so that their states are not correlated, anticipating this phenomenon known as quantum entanglement, spooky action at a distance. If you have not read Walter Isaacson's Einstein biography, it's definitely worth picking up. Now, I have no idea about the validity. Well, I have some idea about the validity of these next two quotes. I'm pretty sure the Einstein quote really is from Einstein. I'm fairly sure that the Tesla quote is from Tesla. With the way that quotes get thrown around the internet, who knows who said what at any time. But if you're going to listen to two people about the power of imagination, the power of conceptualization, the power of visualization, Einstein and Tesla are probably pretty close to the top of the list. Einstein said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge. For while knowledge defines all we currently know and understand, imagination points to all we might yet discover and create." Kind of seems tertiary to the point we are talking about in today's entry, clarify your intentions. But without those muscles worked up, I dare say whatever intentions you have, whatever end you have in mind, is not nearly as developed as it could be, and the clarity of your very visualizations helps you go a long way. That's what helped Einstein. And if it's good enough for Einstein, by God, I think it's good enough for us. Tesla, my method is different. I do not rush into actual work. When I get a new idea, I start at once building it up in my imagination and make improvements and operate the device in my mind when I have gone so far as to embody everything in my invention, every possible improvement I can think of. And when I see no fault anywhere, I put into concrete form the final product in my brain. That's exactly what this entry is about. Tesla, with all of his wild inventions, would create them in his brain. He would visualize it. He would have the end in mind, and he would create from there. This was the first episode in a series, in a playlist on the Daily Stoic on this channel. If you hit the like button, it really does help me out. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, I do this kind of stuff on the channel all the time. This will be an ongoing series, and I hope to have you back for the next one.